Hey FCF, it's day 5 in a journey we're calling Core Critical Truths. And we left off with the ideas that if we were to consider what is the greatest gift that God could give, if we go back and there's nothing but God, let's say, what is the greatest gift, the kindest, the most generous gift that He could give? Well, it would be to create beings that have the ability to experience and enjoy life like He Himself does. Image-bearing beings. We read how in Genesis says that God made us in His image, and He made us to rule over the planet and the wildlife and so forth. So, image-bearing beings. Now there was a portion of this that I said that authentically God has given us the same capacities that He has in order that we can have a real relationship with Him. So, the thought sometimes comes in, I mentioned that, God is so high above us intellectually that He couldn't have fellowship with us, but that's not true. We see brilliant human beings having authentic relationships with their children, and the children have influence over those parents, great influence sometimes. So the point I'm trying to make is that God not only gave us the greatest gift He could give by making us beings that can experience life like He Himself does, mind, reason, emotions, will, but authentically He gave us the capacity to have a real relationship with Himself, a meaningful relationship. It means something to Him as well as it means something to us. Now, behind all this is one key component, and that is free will. Now, God knew that when He made image-bearing beings, though it was the most generous, loving gift that He could give, He also knew that it was full of problems. He knew that given free will to image-bearing beings, that free will would be misused. Now, this is something that the Scripture calls a trait that the Scripture calls God has foreknowledge. Now, foreknowledge is important for us to kind of get a grasp on, because foreknowledge doesn't mean foreordination. Foreordination is that God is making something to occur. Foreknowledge is allowing something to occur, but knowing it's going to occur in advance. The analogy that I've given a lot of times is that, I record the Washington football games every week because I don't like to sit through 3 hours of watching football. You can do it in 1 hour if you fast forward through the commercials. So you're literally watching 2 hours of commercials. But let's just say someone watched the whole game, the whole 3 hours, and then they knew that the Washington team lost. Now, I haven't watched the game yet. They could come to me and they could tell me Washington lost, and they could tell me the exact score. But here's the question. They have knowledge, foreknowledge. I don't have the knowledge. I'm going to watch the game later on. But is that foreknowledge on their part causative? Did they foreordain the Washington loss and cause the players to be influenced in such a way that they lost? No. They just watched, they observed, and they recorded how it ended. I haven't seen it yet, so to me, it's new. To the person that watched it, though, they already know the end in the beginning. God has foreknowledge. He doesn't force us to do things. He doesn't overwhelm our free will, but He does know in advance how things are going to turn out. Let me give you one more vague example. Imagine that you were standing on top of a very high mountain, maybe in the Grand Canyon or something like that, and you could see from miles away. And you see one road, there's only one road that leads to this particular mountain where you're at. And you can see a car, it's like 5 miles off in the distance, and it's on this road. Well, it's the only road, and it is inevitably going to lead that car eventually to come right where you're at. Because you're so high above it, you have foreknowledge, but you're not causing that car to come to that spot. You just see the path that it's on, and you know that it's inevitable. Now, the reason this is important is because there are some people that have misread the Scripture, misread the character of God, and this is where we go back to again. We have to check everything that we think we read in Scripture with the fundamentals of God's character. But some have thought that since God is sovereign, in their mind, sovereign means that God's in control, and if He's in control, it means He causes everything. And so essentially, free will is a delusion. We're just all like puppets. We just don't know it. I actually met with a person recently, a person just like you and I, that makes decisions by the hundreds probably every day. But they literally looked me in the eyes and told me they do not believe that they have free will. Of course, it's irrational. It doesn't make any sense, but that's the thought. So there are some people that will take a verse or two from Scripture and get into this frame of mind that if God's sovereign, he chose in advance for people to behave in a certain way, and there is no such thing as free will. But that doesn't fit. If you're going to have an authentic relationship with somebody, it has to be free. If you're going to love, you have to be able to hate. So we know that God, creating the very best experience that a being can have, he created us with free will, with full knowledge now that free will would be misused. Okay, so we sometimes think that as things are unfolding to us in Scripture, that they're kind of catching God off guard. It's almost like, okay, so he creates the angelic civilizations first, and by the way, the Scripture is clear about that he made the angelic civilizations way before he brought humanity into existence. But we kind of think that he didn't foresee that one of these angels named Lucifer would rebel against him and lead 1/3 of the angels to follow along in the rebellion. But he did. Before he ever made one image-bearing being, before he ever gave this great gift of the capacity to enjoy life like he himself does, he foresaw that these image-bearing beings, both angelic and human, would misuse this gift of free will and would bring into existence evil. He didn't cause it, but he did foresee it. Now we're going to kind of end there today, and I'm going to pick up this subject matter a little bit more about free will, the place that it plays in all of God's workings, and how critically important it really is. So we'll talk to you again tomorrow.